world of deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. It's the David Knight Show.
As the clock strikes 13, it's Tuesday, the 7th of April, year of our Lord 2026. Today is the day that the world watches with bated breath to see what this erratic, F-bombing terrorist is going to do. Is it going to set the Mideast on fire? Is it going to create a global depression? You know, David Stockman has talked about how this is not going to be your grandfather's stagflation. It's not going to be the stagflation of 50 years ago. This is going to be something much worse. This guy began kicking this off with his second term right from the very beginning with the tariffs, and now he is stepping on the gas, driving us over the cliff like Thelma and Louise. Even a lot of the MAGA cheerleaders are pulling back, but it's too late. We'll have to see what this guy does. We're going to take a look at the reactions of this and the utter insanity, issuing threats to destroy entire countries. That is a war crime, folks. That is terrorism. Maybe we should have the nuclear weapons taken away from America, certainly from Donald Trump. Take that button on his desk away from him. We'll be right back. Yeah, of course, over the weekend, and it got worse on Monday. He's talking about how, I can destroy entire countries, right?
The entire country can be taken out in one night, and that night might be tomorrow night. Both members of the crew ejected from the aircraft and landed alive.
Yeah, it's corrupt, evil. That's his victory. Why did they have to eject from that, right? Was it because of the war that you started? A war of aggression? Now he's threatening to destroy entire countries? We got people in Israel, Ben Gvir, showing us that they've become Hitler. He's bragging about and celebrating the fact, toasting champagne, as he and his party walk around with lapel pins that are nooses. What they're celebrating is they got the death penalty in Israel for Palestinians only. Yeah. They have become exactly what they fought. These people who are just like Hitler. He is literally Hitler, invading other countries, doing a blitzkrieg, right? We're going to take him out quickly. This blitzkrieg war against countries that have not attacked us, preemptively striking them. This is infamy, folks. And what Israel is doing is literally genocide. There's no question about it anymore. When they got a death penalty for one ethnic group, and one ethnic group only, and the targeting of civilians, that's also unjust. And what Donald Trump is doing is putting that on steroids. I'm not going to leave until I have destroyed the country, as he brags about the fact, I've taken out their Navy, I've taken out their Air Force, I've taken out their missiles and everything. That's not really true. However, to the extent that it is true, they say, well, we're winning this. We've neutralized their threat. So then why do you persist? That's another aspect of a just war. Just war, not starting wars, not being an act of aggression, only fighting to defend human life and fighting to end the war as soon as possible. He's not interested in ending the war as soon as possible. He's going after civilian targets, boasting about it. The reality is that he has become, where did we put that clip, Travis? I can't find it. The one you just put in. Can you fire it? Yeah, go ahead and fire that. This is what we really have become.
Albert, when I came to you with those calculations, we thought we might start a chain reaction that would destroy the entire world.
I remember it well. What happened?
I believe we did.
Yeah, whether he goes nuclear or not, perhaps Trump has started a chain reaction that will destroy the entire world. I'm sick of war. I don't understand the people who cheer for it. And I certainly don't understand starting it in a war of aggression. I don't understand targeting civilians. That is an act of terrorism. That's what the Zionists have been doing. And Trump, this is a Zionist war. Stop calling it the Iran war. This is the Zionist war. Their war of choice. What they started. And what they started is going to continue. You know, just like he was concerned that he said there was a possibility that when they first started talking about it, they said, well, if we set this thing off, it might start a chain reaction to destroy the atmosphere. But let's do it anyway, right? Kind of like Trump. You know, this may start a chain reaction that destroys the global economy, takes us into World War III, but hey, let's do it anyway. Not a care, not a thought in the world. And to all of those cheerleaders on Twitter and everywhere else, that disgust me so much. I voted for this. I voted for this. It's like, no, you didn't. You didn't vote for what happened in Venezuela. You didn't vote for what's going on in Iran and the Middle East right now. He promised exactly the opposite. You didn't vote for that. You're nothing but a bunch of cheerleading liars and the people who are leading them along. It's disgusting to see this. So again, the 3D chess that Alex Jones is always telling you about, I guess we now see it as deranged, dangerous, and defiant. Defiant of God, actually, quite frankly. He's out there saying, glory to God. This guy checks all of the boxes of a madman. How do we get him out of there? And quite frankly, I don't care what his issue is. I don't care if it's because of dementia or senility. I don't care if it's because of his psychopathic, sociopathic personality disorders. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's his ego politics that is involved. Get him out of there by hook or by crook. He's got to go. So Trump's deadline, he says, yeah, we're going to, I could take out all of Iran in just one night. What is he going to do? Is he going to use nuclear weapons? You know, it's kind of interesting. We can't allow Iran to have nuclear weapons. Says the only country that has used nuclear weapons. Israel says they can't be allowed to have nuclear weapons, even though Iran has signed on to the non-proliferation agreement, which Israel never did. How is it that Israel and the U.S. are allowed to have nuclear weapons, but other people aren't? And quite frankly, his actions have guaranteed that there's going to be nuclear proliferation. The one lesson to be taken from this is that if you don't have nuclear weapons, you are liable to be attacked at any point in time by somebody who wants your land, like the Zionists, or by somebody who wants your oil, like Trump. And so when you look at nuclear weapons, they're there as a deterrent, aren't they? And so why is it that if nuclear weapons are a deterrent for the U.S. being attacked, if nuclear weapons are a deterrent for Israel being attacked, then why shouldn't Iran have it? Well, because we want to be able to attack them. That's the bottom line. So Trump reiterated threats to Iran's bridges and power plants. He said the Iranian people are willing to suffer. As a matter of fact, this lunatic liar is out there saying, we're getting all these messages from them. Please bomb us again. You're not bombing us enough. Yeah, we're not winning enough. Please bomb us some more. I guess he's mistaking these people for his supporters, the MAGA supporters, the farmers, the small businesses that he is bombing with his economic policies and all the rest of the stuff. And with the wars, yeah, please do it again to us. I guess he figures most people are so stupid they keep begging for him to destroy their lives. Trump said on Monday, he said a 45-day ceasefire will be a significant step, but it's not good enough. Iran, meanwhile, has rejected the proposal. So they said, we need a permanent end to war. And, you know, they're not going to get a permanent end to war unless they get a nuclear weapon. And we're not going to have an end to endless wars unless we get rid of Donald Trump. We're never going to have peace and prosperity unless that madman is out of the White House and the sycophants around him as well. It's insane. He's got a long list of wars that he wants. He wants to go to war with Canada, go to war with Greenland, go to war with Venezuela next. Cuba is next. I mean, he's got He's got these things stacked up like a queue. I've never seen anything this insane. You know, there was a talk about it. Wesley Clark said, yeah, they're talking about going to war with 7 different countries, which now they've done. You know, they get these lists queued up, but they usually had the decency to try to keep that quiet because they realized that wars of aggression are immoral and illegal and unpopular. Trump just doesn't care. Just doesn't care. You know, I think back about this, and I think about Matt Drudge, for example, and the trajectory that has been going with Matt Drudge. Everybody's like, what's going on with him? He flipped. He's now opposing Donald Trump. And it happened kind of early. I looked at it, and it seemed to me like the timing was roughly what was happening with the Conway family. Had Kellyanne Conway, very well connected to Donald Trump. George Conway thought he was going to get a position in the Trump administration. He got cold shoulder or dumped on or whatever by Donald Trump. He didn't like Trump. So at first I thought, well, you know, maybe this is just, maybe it's just kind of sour grapes getting passed over for promotion. You know, people will look at that. That is a motivation for a lot of people. Maybe it's jealousy of his wife's success. And again, they did divorce after that. And I thought, well, maybe that's it. And of course, I knew that Matt Drudge and George Conway had been very close friends. What made the Drudge report, if you remember, was information about Monica Lewinsky during the Clinton administration. Matt Drudge was breaking all that information. He was getting that information from George Conway, who was involved in those cases and the cases of some of the people that were victims of Clinton. And so I thought, well, maybe that's it. You know, they're really close friends, so he's going to take George Conway's side. But I think he got it right, quite frankly. And of course, Ann Coulter went from calling him God Emperor Trump to dumping on him. So good for them. I think they were close enough that they saw something before other people did. Who knows what the motivation was? But at least they got that right. You know, when I met Matt Drudge, I thanked him for what he did with baby Samuel. If you remember, he had a show on Fox News, and the baby Samuel thing was that operation for spina bifida. It was an in utero operation. And when they were doing the operation, the baby reached its hand up. Remember that? Small hand reaches up and grabs the pinky of the surgeon that's doing it. Somebody snapped a picture. It was over at Vanderbilt University. And that was a real important moment. It humanized the children that are being ripped apart in the womb. It also had an effect for some friends of ours who had a baby who had spina bifida, and they had that operation as well. Probably mitigated. She still is unable to walk completely, but I think it helped to mitigate it somewhat. It was pretty severe. They had it at Vanderbilt University. So when I met Matt Drudge, I said, you know, I want to thank you for doing that. That was really important. And he paused for a second. What? Huh? And he goes, oh, that. He goes, I just did that because I wanted to get out of the contract with Fox. He wasn't pro-life. He was just wanting to get out of that contract. But, you know, that's the way things go. He wanted to get out of a contract, but God used that for good in a lot of people's lives. And so, but I knew he was also libertarian in terms of his politics. I can't understand for the life of me how anybody who supports liberty, who supports free markets, how any Christian who supports life can support him. I don't get it at all. Of course, these other people say, oh, he's all pro-life. Yeah, he tells you he is. They stopped the Planned Parenthood funding and then restarted it quietly. But folks, we got to understand, pro-life is from cradle to grave, actually from preborn to grave. So you don't kill babies in the womb. That also means you don't kill babies in a room by dropping a bomb on them. That's also pro-life. That is equally important. Yeah, you can get all excited and oppose abortion or euthanasia. How about stopping wars? Why isn't that a concern of the Christian community? You should oppose euthanasia. You should oppose abortion. But you have to oppose war. Unless the war is to fight off an aggressor who is killing people, then it is justified. What Iran is doing now is justified. What Israel and the United States are doing is not justified. They are the Nazis in this equation right here. Earlier, Israeli Defense Forces said it conducted a wave of airstrikes targeting Tehran and other parts of Iran. So, while CNN and mainstream media boast about how effective the U.S. surgical strikes are and all the rest of this stuff, they're largely silent on the fact that there are also strikes against Israel. As a matter of fact, for the last several days, over the weekend, they had the biggest strikes that they'd ever had before in Israel. And then on Monday as well. And so what is going to happen after all of this stuff? They just keep gambling with our lives. They gamble with the peace and prosperity of this country. As a matter of fact, when you look at Ben Shapiro, he's telling us all the missiles are gone, right?
They've been reduced in their military capacity. Their ballistic missile launchers are largely gone.
So how come there's more waves of attacks?
Forward capacity with their terrorist arms, basically gone. Their nuclear program under mountains of rock. So what do they have left? How do they maintain power? With no economy, with no ability to pay their guys, with no forward capacity.
Maybe what you're doing is lying about it.
The answer is the only thing that they can do, truly, is race to a nuke.
That's right.
The only thing they can do.
And so that's what this action is causing.
Presumably, this current action was the idea that Iran was so trapped, the only way they could break out was a breakout to a nuclear weapon and turn themselves into a hermit state like North Korea.
Yeah, right.
That is the reason why they won't just give up the nukes. If they give up the nukes, they're gone. They know it. If they give up their nuclear capacity or the race to a nuke, then they are a weakened military structure sitting atop a population of 90 million people, most of whom hate them. And that is incredibly dangerous for them. And so now...
Well, you know, wouldn't you? Because that's what Israel has become, what the Zionist project has become. Yeah, people... talk about a hermit state. Use Israel as an example. They've isolated themselves from everybody in the world. Is anybody talking about how awful North Korea is right now? Well, no, North Korea is... If they had a chance, they would be killing people, but they're staying within their borders. Not so with Israel. Israel is far more of a pariah at this point in time than North Korea is. I know the people in North Korea are insane. We've got an insane leader in the White House as well. Everybody's concerned about what Kim Jong-un will do. But the whole world is watching Trump. He is the person in the spotlight right now. Iran says alleged U.S.-Israeli strikes hit Iran's nuclear fuel cycle. And so they're going to blow up these nuclear power plants that have been built by the Russians in Iran. How crazy is that? It is a violation of the immunity of peaceful nuclear facilities. But we don't care about international rules. We don't care about morality. We don't care about attacking civilians, terrorizing people, because that's what terror is. Terror is the use of or the threat of force against civilian populations primarily in order to achieve your political goals. Isn't that what Trump is doing? As a matter of fact, Israel has approved an updated list of energy and infrastructure targets in Iran as a contingency plan. You see, Trump's values have become the Zionist values. Hey, let's negotiate with them, and then we'll do a sneak attack and stab them in the back while we're negotiating. That type of thing. I'm just disgusted with these people. Thoroughly disgusted with them. Matter of fact, Trump has threatened to take out the entire country of Iran tonight. We'll see what he does. Again, you can't take the guy at his word because he's such a liar and grifter.
Mr. President, how would it not be a war crime to strike Iran's bridges and power plants?
Because they killed 45,000 people in the last month. More than that. I think it could be as much as 60. They killed...
How many are you planning to kill?
And we have to stop them, and we can't let them have a nuclear weapon. Very simple. They want a nuclear weapon. They've been trying for a long time. I stopped them with the Obama horrible Iran nuclear deal. I stopped them in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, well, the reality is that Oman and the Gulf states, that, you know, again, it was from the very beginning, they were helping to moderate this. They rushed back to the United States because they knew that the U.S. was going to preemptively strike. And they said, look, they put a lot of stuff here on the table. They're going to let people inspect it. You know, Israel has never done any of that, right? And as a matter of fact, you talk about how they got the nuclear bomb. Ben Shapiro's uncle was suspected of having that delivered to Israel. Kind of interesting, isn't it? He worked for a company that appeared to be the place where it came from. So a report from Wall Street Journal that the U.S. military is making preparations for potential strikes on energy targets in Iran. Again, this will be for the Zionists. They want the Greater Israel Project, and to get control of all these countries, they need to destroy them all, just like Gaza. Well, that's a lot of bombs, and bombs are kind of expensive. So I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll threaten the Iranians, and we'll say we're going to blow up all your infrastructure, all of your production capacity. They counterstrike and say, well, if you do that, then we will do that to the Gulf states that are nearby, which they're capable of doing. And so Israel and Zionist Trump, their puppet, keep pushing. And if they do that, they will destroy the Middle East. They'll set it on fire. In spite of what these liars and Zionist propagandists like Ben Shapiro say, the largest retaliation against Israel happened this last weekend, and again on Monday. They know that Iran can destroy the Middle East infrastructure, and they want that to happen. That's exactly the outcome that they want. It's what the Zionists want. Because the Zionist project, folks, in simplest terms, is to kill people and take their land. That's why there was a ultra-Orthodox rabbi on there. He says, it's a violation of Torah. You know, you look at the Ten Commandments. Don't steal, don't kill. They kill in order to steal. As a matter of fact, this is what it looks like. This is a guy who's a Christian, I think. And here's some settlers, quote unquote settlers, coming in to smashing up his shop. This, folks, is a metaphor of what the state of Israel wants to do to the entire Middle East. Destroy everything, we'll take it over, and we'll rebuild it. We'll destroy it to kill it. Yeah, now he tries to take out the camera, but he's not able to do it. Yeah. This is what Zionism is, folks. This is what's going on with this war with Iran. That's the basis of the entire project. So again, Israel attacked more petrochemical plants, and this is why this is going to be much worse than lockdowns and embargoes, because they're destroying the production capability. It's going to take a long time to get that back on. Israel has announced that it was behind the attack on these on South Pars. Does this violate Israel's prior pledge to Trump to not take unilateral action against South Pars? Do they ever keep their word? No, not even to him, probably. So it is the normalization of war crimes that we're looking at here. Iranian leaders fear that without proper and final resolution, the country will just get attacked again. And so that's why they said, we're not interested in a 45-day ceasefire. We don't believe you'd honor it anyway. Look at what Israel has done in Gaza. Look at what you did when we were negotiating with you. You attacked us twice, last summer and then again in February. So they said, without something concrete here, the country will get attacked again, whether it's a year from now or whether it's 7 years down the road. So he reminded the world that Tehran has, quote, a very bitter experience negotiating with the U.S. Talks at this moment remain absolutely incomplete. He said, with ultimatums, crimes, and threats to commit crimes, said the foreign minister of Iran. And so the whole world now sees Israel as pariah and the United States as pariah. And rightfully so. Rightfully so. As a matter of fact, the foreign minister of Iran, Araghchi, I think is the way you pronounce his name, speaking in France, he said, Trump's threats to wipe out civilian infrastructure, he said, this threat amounts to the normalization of war crimes and of genocide. And again, the genocide charges are not hyperbole, folks. If you go out and you celebrate and you lobby for and you celebrate, drink champagne to the fact that you can now have a death penalty for Palestinians, and only for Palestinians, not for Jews, not for the Übermensch, right? How is that different from Hitler? It's the same thing exactly. Potential globally catastrophic escalation looming tonight. The Middle East mediators are communicating with Iran and the United States about a proposed 45-day ceasefire, but they're not going to fall for that. If they don't make a deal, I'm blowing up everything over there, said Trump. His threats to lay waste to Iran's civilian infrastructure has elicited Iranian promises to retaliate in kind across the Persian Gulf. Folks, they're not going to forget what he does. At some point in time, they will retaliate here in the United States as well. This is what Trump is preparing for you, for your children, for your grandchildren. He is storing up wrath for the future. Among other things, Trump is demanding that Iran weaken the ballistic missile system that's now used twice to retaliate against U.S. and Israeli aggression, and to cease any nuclear enrichment, even though Iran is otherwise privileged to do so because they have signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, which Israel has never done. Who's more dangerous here? What good would it do to have a treaty with Israel anyway? It's just treachery, perfidy, like we saw in the negotiations of Kushner, Witkoff. Zero Hedge says we should note that there's a growing number of veterans and other people who are pointing to factors like the involvement of the C-130 cargo craft and the location of their makeshift airfield, theorizing that the rescue was actually a failed attempt to capture Iran's cache of 60% enriched uranium. So maybe it was a diversion. Who knows? That has been the big factor that Trump trumpeted even as they were getting planes shot down. That was his talking about how wonderful that was, that they were able to mount a rescue operation. And it's like, well, you're the one who started the war. So they had two C-130 aircraft, $100 million each, destroyed intentionally because they had issues, I guess. But the and 4 helicopters shot down, and a couple of jets. One of them a Warthog, the other one, what was it? An F-15 Eagle, I think it was. Veterans are ripping Trump for threatening civilian targets. This was MS Now, Alex Cabot, spoke to several veterans at an American Legion post in Miami. He said, well, we heard President Trump is being asked about blowing up civilian infrastructure, the bridges, the power plants. And he argued that's not a war crime. What do you make of the president's rhetoric about that issue? Do you think that's the way the commander-in-chief should be conducting himself in this war? One guy, Rick Schmeck, said, I'm totally against it. It's a war crime. I mean, how do you win a war by destroying a country? It's just he even said it. It would take years to rebuild the infrastructure that he wants to blow up tomorrow. So let's hope that they negotiate. Let's hope this never happens. And there was another veteran there they spoke to. And, of course, they're going to speak to the guys who are against it. I got to say, why wouldn't they all be against it? Why wouldn't we as Americans be against it? That is not in our best interest. And so we look at the pushback. And as Trump is raging, as I said yesterday, it tells you a couple of things. It tells you, first of all, that he's not winning as he says he is, or he wouldn't be upset. He's put himself into a corner. That was what produced this kind of rage. And because he's in a corner that he put himself in, he's now become very dangerous. Tucker Carlson raged at him over the Easter weekend. He said, who do you think you are? And, he was putting out the F word on Easter, attacking other people's religion. Well, let's talk about, what's more important? An F-bomb and the crass vulgarity of Trump, which we always knew was there. What's more important, that or actual real bombs that he's going to drop on people in a terrorist attack? And again, it's out of frustration. It's out of desperation. That's what's producing this. Tucker wrote a long post, and he ended it by saying, we are not a theocracy, and God willing, we will never be, because theocracies corrupt the religion. I've said that for the longest time. And that when you mix church and state, what you get is state. it always destroys the religion that tries to use it. We're going to baptize people at the point of a sword. Well, it corrupts that religion as well. James Carville says Trump is losing it. He said this man is deteriorating at a really rapid rate. And when he went on with Ari Melber to talk, he used Alex Jones as the example. So Miller told Carville, he said, I'm going to show you Alex Jones, not because he's a source for anything, but only because he has been in this right-wing swamp. No, he was actually the leader. He was actually the leader of the propaganda unit, telling everybody it was 3D chess. He's the one who created that echo chamber. Whether it was getting Trump elected.
4D chess.
Yeah, 4D chess, yeah. Whether it's getting him elected or, driving people to January the 6th, picking their pocket and setting them up. He was always at the core part of that. But of course, now he looks at it after cheering Trump for 10 years. He realizes that Trump is losing it and everybody sees it. So again, it's not about principles. It's about polls. And it's about how can he make money. He can make money now by switching sides. So that's exactly what he'll do. Purely mercenary. It was not even a year ago that Alex Jones was cheering the police state, cheering Trump's war crimes in Venezuela. And again, when we look at this, how in the world do you start murdering people on the high seas? Going back after you've blown up their ship and they're shipwrecked, you finish the job off. That is a war crime. That is terrorism. How do you support that? How do you cheer that? Now he changes? Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed about Trump. He's just extended this to the global economy, this insanity, this war crimes. But he was committing war crimes long before that. You excuse him, you cheer him for what he was doing with ICE. You cheer him for these criminal actions in Venezuela. But now you've had enough, right, Alex? When the Iran threat vanished overnight from weeks away to no threat at all, not long ago, Iran was described as an imminent threat. Now we're told it wasn't a threat after all. What changed? Well, this is from American Thinker. A shift is playing out in real time as the narrative around the Iran war evolves. A recent Rasmussen report poll found that a majority of likely U.S. voters believe the conflict has been successful so far. So why don't we come home? Why do we have to destroy the country now? If you declare victory and leave, instead of becoming a heinous war criminal. Well, because they admire Genghis Khan instead of Jesus Christ. That was made pretty clear to us before this happened here. Again, Shapiro is going to destroy the entire country anyway. They don't have any missiles or Air Force or Navy or anything, but we got to destroy them. Only we are allowed to have nuclear weapons because for us, nuclear weapons are a deterrent. But it's not, and it would be a deterrent for people to attack Iran as well. They want to be free to attack Iran whenever they feel like it. That's the real issue that is there. So Trump and First Lady Melania tell the children of Iran that the U.S. is fighting for their future. They did this at the White House Easter egg roll. I think we're all getting rolled in this thing here. And she actually said, a reporter asked her about a message for the children who find themselves in war zones. But all this is happening, darling, for their future, right? So they will be able to be safe in years to come, she said, I guess. The same kind of lies that she tells about how she wants AI and robots to teach your children and your grandchildren. Yeah, people are pure evil, quite frankly. As they say that, Trump is pushing them to hurry up and finish my bunker ballroom, right? This is the difference between them and us. The Trump class of billionaires are going to have their own bunker ballrooms to ride out the wars that they start, while the rest of us die or fight. So he's out there, and on the weekend that we choose to celebrate Christ's resurrection, his death and resurrection, he brings in Laura Ingraham, and I saw somebody put this up on Twitter and said, Isn't this amazing that Donald Trump has the guts to do this? What other president would put up a picture of Jesus Christ?
And it's very cool.
It's very cool. Oh my.
Isn't that great?
Isn't that great? Wow.
Just went up yesterday.
Is that Jesus? I thought that Jesus looked like Jim Caviezel or something, right? They can't make up their mind. They don't know what Jesus looks like, first of all. Secondly, why does he have, and it just went up yesterday so I could virtue signal about it for my holiday I call Easter. Why does he put it up? You know, first of all, there's nothing special about a picture of Jesus that somebody imagined. It's not Jesus, okay? And he doesn't care what Jesus said, but he takes an alleged picture of Jesus, puts it on the wall, and puts a curtain over it. He's got a closet Jesus. He's got his own personal Jesus in a closet. His LGBT merchandise was all over his website when he's running for president, but Jesus is behind curtains. Yeah, it's curtains for Christianity, quite frankly. It has nothing to do with Christ's death and resurrection. This is all about Easter eggs and Easter bunnies. And hey, let me show the Fox News people. I've got a picture that's supposed to be Christ, and I've got it behind some curtains. Isn't that great? And so then it gets even stranger. He actually spent more time with the Easter bunny than he did with Jesus, which I imagine makes him feel more comfortable. He's going to have to answer to the Lord Jesus Christ one day. He doesn't have to answer to the Easter bunny. Here's Trump with Easter bunny.
It gets much more hostile than Iran.
Does it get much more crazier than this?
They're very tough people, and there are others like that. You don't mind when the enemy is weak, but that enemy is strong. Not so strong like this.
He stands there with an Easter bunny next to him.
In fact, right now, they're not too strong at all, in my opinion, but we're soon going to find out, aren't we?
Is that insanity or what? He's up there threatening to start a global depression. He's threatening to destroy an entire country. And he's got this Easter bunny standing next to him. I said, you know, this reminds me of that Jimmy Stewart movie, Harvey. So are these people in the room with you right now, Trump? All these people that you're talking about? How about Harvey the Puka? Is he there? Well, who knows who that Easter bunny was? Somebody had an interesting piece of AI artwork here. Here's Marco Rubio taking a break. He takes the Easter bunny head off and he sits down and has a cigarette. This is insane, folks. Trump is literally crazy, and I don't care where it came from. I don't care if it's dementia, personality disorder, ego. I don't care. Everybody can see he's a madman with a nuclear button and the world's largest military, and he's using it. As a matter of fact, he's out there saying, yeah, please keep bombing. Trump claims Iranians are begging the U.S. to keep attacking the country. He said, you said Iranians would be mad if you stopped these attacks. If you stopped these attacks, said one member of the press. But why should they want you to blow up their infrastructure? Why would they want you to cut off their power? Wouldn't that be punishing Iranians for the action of that regime? That was from ABC reporter Mary Bruce. Trump told her the Iranian people are, quote, they're willing to suffer in order to have freedom. We've had numerous intercepts. He says, they say, please keep bombing. Bombs that are dropping near their homes. Please keep bombing. Do it. People that are living where the bombs are exploding, he said, and when we're not hitting those areas, they're saying, please come back, come back, come back, bomb some more. This is Dr. Strangelove fantasy, I guess, how the Iranians stopped worrying and learned to love the bombs because they're coming from the USA. Isn't that great? Just love it when they bomb us, when they kill us. The president said that was evident during the protests earlier this year, where government snipers would kill women in the streets. Let's talk about what we did to start this war. Right? Do we do that type of thing? That's the reason you don't attack civilians. And again, this goes back to this whataboutism. Well, Biden did such and such, so now I'm entitled to do it. Or the Democrats will do the same. Trump did this, so now I can do it. Well, the Iranian regime did this, so now I can kill Iranian civilians.
My name's Josephine Gilbo. I'm a former intelligence officer. I spent 17 years in the U.S. Army. I was a counterterrorism officer. And I want to give you the definition of terrorism. Terrorism is the premeditated use of violence or threat of violence against civilians or property to induce fear, coercion, or intimidation aimed at government or societies to achieve political, religious, or ideological objectives. Given this information,
and Donald Trump's picture's right there.
Now to the bombing of Manab. 165 little girls were killed by United States Tomahawks from a United States vessel in the area of operation. A modern Tomahawk missile is equipped with onboard cameras, real-time targeting imagery. Satellite imagery is constantly collected by several intelligence agencies, several countries in real time. Now let's talk about when the attack started on Iran, 10 a.m. At 10 a.m., Israel, along with the United States, began attacking Iran. By 10:20, the staff at Minab school began evacuating the children. Multiple sources, including intelligence reports, regional sources, and U.S. officials are required to confirm a target for the U.S. Navy and military operations to ensure accuracy and reduce errors. This is how it works. Why? We just bombed a school knowing it was a school. Who are the terrorists? Who are the bad guys in this story? By our own definition of terrorism, and I can say this as a former counterterrorist officer, we are the terrorists.
Yeah, he can always make the claim, well, that was a mistake, right? Hegseth Warpeat got rid of the people who were going to review the targets and so forth. When we got Palantir out there picking targets, we got to have a lot of targets. We got to make this really big. This has got to be a blitzkrieg. Yeah, I need 1,000 targets on the first day. Okay, grab a bunch of targets. Get as many as you can. And so there's this push, a quota for targets. We have cut back on the people who are going to verify this stuff. So you could always say that. And yet, as she pointed out, it's under constant surveillance. Why didn't they see the kids evacuating and redirect this or pull it back or something? But nevertheless, we could argue back and forth about that. I think she's right. But now Trump is out there boasting about how he's going to target civilians and infrastructure. So there's no question that he's a terrorist. That was a clip that came out before his episode or whatever it was that caused him to tweet out the things that he did over the weekend. Marjorie Taylor Greene says on Easter morning, this is what President Trump posted, and she retweeted the thing, I'm going to effing destroy them or what, that whole thing. She said, everyone in his administration that claims to be a Christian needs to fall on their knees and beg forgiveness from God and stop worshiping the president and intervene in his madness. I know all of you, and I know him, and he has gone insane, and all of you are complicit. I'm not defending Iran. Let's be honest about all this. The strait is closed because the U.S. and Israel started the unprovoked war against Iran based on the same nuclear lies that they've been telling for decades, that any moment Iran would develop a nuclear weapon. And isn't it amazing that even though Netanyahu's been lying about this for 30-something years, that now even as they say, well, we've destroyed basically the country's infrastructure and all the rest of the stuff, but they could still do this nuclear bomb at any moment now. So I got to keep bombing them. That's not the agenda. The agenda is the greater Israel land grab and their willingness and desire to kill people they consider to be subhuman compared to them. That's what this is really about. She said, who has nuclear weapons? Israel. They are more than capable of defending themselves. That's what the deterrence is for, right? Without the U.S. having to fight their wars. and kill innocent people and children and pay for them to do all of this. We as Christians should be reminded that the Son of God died and rose from the grave so that we could be forgiven once and all for our sins. Jesus commanded us to love one another, to forgive one another, even our enemies. Our president, says Marjorie Taylor Greene, is not a Christian. Oh, I didn't know that. His words and actions should not be supported by Christians. Christians in this administration should be pursuing peace instead of War Pete's lethality. That's my comment. Urging the president to make peace and not escalating a war that is hurting people. And again, that was in response to his crazy tweet. Open the effing straight, you crazy. Anyway, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Praise be to Allah. Again, how can anybody look at this guy and still support him? As the Free Thought Project points out, the liberation, quote unquote, of hell. Trump's Iran ultimatum and the death of America first. Gaslighting the public into supporting the slaughter of innocents is a tale as old as the state itself, writes Free Thought Project. If we don't abandon this cult of personality, history is about to violently repeat itself. This guy is literally Hitler, folks. You know, just call it Operation Epstein Führer. That's what it really is. Not fury, but der Führer. Trump claimed that the 93 million people of Iran actually want the United States to destroy their civilian infrastructure. Please bomb us some more. It is the ultimate savior complex. Again, Trump just keeps going back into this messianic mode, this bizarre fantasy he's got. This arrogant delusion doesn't exist in a vacuum, says Free Thought Project. It requires a vast, compliant network of useful idiots to regurgitate the propaganda and to cheer for the slaughter. Throughout history, the most brutal tyrants didn't achieve their massive body counts through sheer force alone. They relied on enthusiastic cheerleaders who mistook bloodlust for patriotism. Stalin had his loyalists defending the Gulag as necessary for the safety of the state. Mao had his zealous students who were enforcing the Great Leap Forward while millions starved to death. Hitler had an entire nation convinced that national greatness superseded the lives of peaceful individuals. Today, the American war machine has its own modern equivalent in the form of social media influencers like Cat Turd and Gunter Eagleman, who have entirely abandoned their so-called anti-war posturing to salivate over the prospect of flattening a sovereign nation. Well, you can include Alex Jones in that. He was doing that back with Venezuela. And he was cheering the police state that he had done 4 documentaries to oppose. Again, it's about the money, folks. It's always about the money. And they point out here, Matt Walsh said Trump fans, and they said this about a decade ago, are, quote, intellectual empty vessels ready to adopt whatever position Trump just took and then to abandon it as soon as he does. It really is Orwellian. And I said this, I don't know, what was it, yesterday, I think? I said, when you look at the moral relativism and the postmodernism of the left, we're looking at this, what is it with these people? You know, what is a woman? Oh, I don't know. You know, whatever, you got your truth, I got my truth. Let's not argue about the truth. As we were talking about that yesterday with Ketanji Brown Jackson and at the Supreme Court. You know, why is she even there? I mean, if you're a postmodernist, if you can't tell what a man and a woman is, why are you going to argue over the law? Well, because she's just there to push her idea of what's true. See, that's they've got one truth, and that is that there is no truth. But they do have their preferences that they're going to push on you. And I said, so that's the crazy left. And conservatives and people on the right have seen this and mocked it and shaking their heads over that. And yet, what do? Where do they get their truth? Well, the truth is whatever Trump says. And when Trump says something different tomorrow, that will become the truth. Again, it is completely Orwellian when you look at it. As they point out, Trump stood at a podium, March the 31st, explicitly stated, Regime change is not our goal. And then he, within 7 minutes, he said, regime change is what we want.
Regime change was not our goal. We never said regime change, but regime change has occurred. But we also won regime change. We have a regime change like nobody thought was possible.
There you go. Yeah, what is it? The moving goalpost of his undeclared war. Marco Rubio had the audacity to tweet that Iran should focus on funding the wall. No, that was Trump 10 years ago. Funding the well-being of the people rather than its military. Yet almost simultaneously, Trump admitted that the U.S. cannot afford basic domestic needs. Again, the welfare state that the left wants. I don't support that. But he doesn't support anything. He doesn't want to fix infrastructure. Nothing. We can't do that. We got wars to fight. As a matter of fact, this is a clip of Rubio.
Imagine in Iran that instead of spending their wealth, billions of dollars supporting terrorists or weapons, had spent that money helping the people of Iran, you'd have a much different country.
We have to take care of one thing, military protection. The United States can't take care of daycare. That has to be up to a state. We can't take care of daycare. We're a big country. We have 50 states. We have all these other people. We're fighting wars. We can't take care of daycare. It's not possible for us to take care of daycare. Medicaid, Medicare, all these individual things.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Double think, double speak, lies. The most dangerous part of any regime isn't the tyrant standing at the podium, but the thousands of empty vessels who are laughing and cheering on the front row. If you find yourself cheering on social media at a terror campaign waged against a civilian population, you are not on the side of liberty and you are not putting America first. And oh, by the way, we should be putting this on all these idiots who put out there, I voted for this, I love this. You didn't vote for that. You were told by Trump that he's going to do exactly the opposite, so you're a liar just like him. And you've shown that you're nothing but a cult follower. You voted for Trump. You didn't vote for any principles. You didn't vote for any actions. It's just whatever Trump does, I love it. So no, you did not vote for this because he campaigned against it. History is a graveyard of cults who traded their principles for proximity to power. Every single time it ends in catastrophic bloodshed, writes Free Thought Project. We have to reject this march to war and embrace voluntarist solutions that are built on peace because no politician is coming to save us. Liberty will never be delivered on the tip of a missile. You know, liberty, as the founders said, is a blessing from God, folks. And what we are seeing now, as our liberty is evaporating so rapidly in every aspect of our life, do you think that's a curse? You think Trump is a curse? This is a guy who's raging now like Hitler in the bunker. He's very angry. He's rolling heads as aides break the bad news to him, say some analysts. This is reported by the New Republic, Greg Sargent, Kate Aronoff. They said they've had some sources. Time magazine reported that the White House advisor Susie Wiles fears that Trump is being fed a bill of goods about the popularity of the war. You know, again, what does it matter to her? It just matters whether or not the war is popular, not whether or not it is winnable, not whether or not it is moral or justified. None of that matters to her. It's just, is it popular? So she fears that it's really hurting the GOP chances in the midterms. Yeah, this guy, as I said before, is going to be worse for the Republicans than Jimmy Carter was for the Democrats. So she fears it's hurting the GOP's chances in the midterms. That's an understatement. Trump's pollster, Tony Fabrizio, has conducted studies showing its unpopularity, and a small group of aides delivered the bad news to Trump. I think it's hard for some pundits to accept that Trump's war has made him even more unpopular. That's just not how things are supposed to work. And they've never done that before. I mean, always in the past, you know, when we talk about this with Gerald Celente, you know, when all things fail, they take you to war because everybody rallies around the leader during a war. Well, that's happening in Iran. It's not happening in the U.S. because we are the aggressor. And that's why I wrote the piece that I did, which went over like a lead balloon on Substack, where's our false flag? You know, you at least have to build a consensus, even if it's over a false flag and a lie. He went to war without the public supporting it, without being told what they're fighting for, what the goal is, without any discussion. He's so arrogant that when they lie to us, they don't even bother to come up with something that's plausible, as we saw in Minnesota over and over again. Between Kristi Noem, between Donald Trump, they just make up stories about what everybody had already seen on video from multiple angles. They didn't even care enough to look at one video. They just made up lies about it. And when it comes to starting a major war, to creating a global depression, they don't bother to tell anybody. They don't bother to get a consensus because he doesn't care anymore. He can do whatever he wants. They didn't even have the dignity to haul out a Colin Powell type of figure to lie to us. You know, again, where are the lies? Come on. Usually this is served with a side helping, a heaping helping of lies or something to start a war. They didn't even bother to do that. They just go in cold. They didn't warm people up with that. They just kind of went in there and there was no lead up. There was no sort of attempt to cultivate some sort of popular support or even a real sense that Iran posed a threat. So Greg Sargent expressed hope that Trump's realization of the scale of the backlash could cause him to hunt for a resolution quickly, preventing Iran from turning into a years-long quagmire. Well, it's going to be a years-long quagmire for the GOP, regardless of what happens with this war, but it's going to be even worse if the war continues. So Susie Wiles is telling Trump, sir, whoever is telling you that is going well, that it's going well is lying to you, and this is going to kill us in the midterms. And again, you can't pin your hopes on Susie Wiles because all she cares about is a popularity, number one. Number two, she's been diagnosed with cancer. I don't know if she got that from the mRNA turbo shots from Vax Daddy or what. But she's probably going to be gone a good deal of time if she doesn't leave altogether, because she'll probably go down the whole, chemo stuff and everything else, just like the AMA demands. So a reporter asked Trump, do you believe that God supports the U.S. actions in this war? Again, that is never the answer. When you see somebody, as I've said before, when you see somebody say, God is on our side, that's a big red flag. It should be a big red flag for you. Now, the question is the same question that Joshua said to the people of Israel, not the Zionists, not the Likud party, to the people of Israel. He said, who is on the Lord's side? Come to me. That's the question. Not whether or not God is on our side. Every tin-pot dictator claims that. No, it's whether or not you're on God's side. And we can know that not by the posters that we hang on the wall. We can know that by what we do. Trump said, well, God is good and God wants to see people taken care of. God doesn't like what's happening. I don't like what's happening. Everyone says, I enjoy it. I don't enjoy this. I don't like seeing people killed. He's the one who's doing the killing. So if you don't like it, just stop it. Have a moon pie. Chill out. Stop killing people. He threatened Iran to open up he says, glory to God, as he threatens Iran to wipe them off the face of the earth, right? 48 hours before all hell is going to rain down on them. Certainly sounds like he's enjoying this. And so a lot of prominent MAGA figures have accused Donald Trump of going insane and doing it over the Easter holidays. Imagine that. He's doing it to offend the Easter Bunny. Well, Easter Bunny is certainly on his side. You saw that there, the press guy standing right there next to him, nodding his ears. Tuesday will be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day, all wrapped up in one in Iran, and there'll be nothing like it. Yeah, we're supposed to believe that he doesn't like doing this. He's just pure evil. He's purely unhinged. As Marjorie Taylor Greene had said before, and she wasn't the only one saying that, praise be to Allah on Easter morning. I love how this went from we're freeing the Iranian people to we're sending them back to the Stone Age and stealing their oil, said Vance Murphy, who claims that he's voted for Trump 6 times because he's including primaries. I'm a 6-time Trump voter, he said. I've devoted thousands of hours to defending this SOB. He didn't say that, I said that. And helping him get elected. That being said, invoke the 25th and let's try to salvage anything we can from this disaster. America first. Then Clint Russell, host of a podcast that he calls Liberty Lockdown. Hey, Clint, did you start this in 2020? If you started this in 2020, why would you still support Trump up to this point? You didn't get it when he went to war with us domestically. You didn't get it when he used a bioweapon on us. You didn't get that he was at war with the American people. Lockdown is a jail term. He jailed the country. He went to war with Main Street for the benefit of Wall Street. He threw monkey wrenches in the supply chain then. So yeah, Liberty Lockdown, right? He said, I'm losing a lot of followers. I don't care. I'm right. You're wrong. This war is an abomination and Trump is clearly insane. Well, that's right. He is. And I'm glad that he gets it now. But there's no no medals being handed out for this, except this is now an existential issue for all of us, quite frankly. And even for the worst of the cheerleaders, Alex Jones, he got a Drudge Report link here. Total cuckoo town, says Alex Jones. Yeah, here we are. A decade later, he's been cheering for Trump. He's left the reservation before, and the rat jumps back on the ship and then jumps off of it every time the sea gets rough. But here he is. He's jumping off again because it's about polls. It's not about principles. He says, hands down, this is Alex Jones. In my 32 years on air, nothing has ever even come close to how much danger we're in and the insanity of what's unfolding and the nightmare that Trump has become. He says it's the madness of King George III, 25th Amendment, whatever you want to call it. He says, if we look at the foreign control of Israel, if you look at him changing stories every time, all this is insane. Yeah, he says they're threatening to destroy the Middle East and set it on fire with the Easter Bunny standing next to him. He says, now they're floating nuclear. They're so crazy, who knows, he said. Not saying, notice you don't hear Trump advisor Roger Stone, said Alex Jones. He said, where's Roger for a week plus? He can't even go on air. He's so freaked out. These people have had hours-long conversations with Trump. No, I'll tell you, Roger wants to set out this storm quietly. He's hoping this is all going to blow over so then he can have his cake and eat it too. Look, you can always milk the MAGA herd for more money, can't you? Because Roger has gone off on Donald Trump in the past as well. Now, remember what happened right after January the 6th? He's dead, and dead to me. So, he's been dead to me for quite a while. I'm glad to see people moving against it, but again, at this point, what do we do? What do we do? I mean, they can say he certainly evidences that he is insane. I think we need to have a higher standard for sanity for somebody who's got their finger on the button, don't you? Just as I've said in the past, we have a certain standard for behavior, and when you are allowed to use force, even lethal force, in defense of your life. And I said, when we look at the immunity that is given to the police for anything and everything that they do, I disagree with that. I've said in the past, the police need to be held to a higher standard. And that certainly is true of the president. He needs to be held to a much higher standard of sanity than anybody else. And yet he's not held to any standard, just like the police. He appears to have absolute immunity. And it's people like J.D. Vance and all the rest of them who are giving him that absolute immunity. Well, let's take a look at some of the comments here before we go to a break. Militan Milankovic, thank you for the tip. He has gifted 10 subs as well. Thank you so much. He said, I hope everyone is well, David, and this is for the gas tank. Thank you. I appreciate that. And Stealth Patriot, thank you for the tip. I appreciate that. He said, if there was a Nuremberg 2.0 trial, Trump, keg breath, and Bibi would be on the business end of a rope in a just world. And of course, in a just world, That would be true of Fauci as well. Everybody was talking about Nuremberg 2.0 back then, but of course, remember, Fauci was also protected by Trump.
Well, one thing we do know is that when Biden left office, he was granted this very bizarre pardon where he got a pardon that goes back to 2014 for crimes he was never accused of. Never convicted. I mean, it's got to be one of the first times that anybody's ever been pardoned.
Yeah, and I think it should be challenged. And so we have, under the Biden administration, I sent criminal referrals for Anthony Fauci to Merrick Garland twice, and I sent them evidence that he had lied to Congress, which was a felony. They just ignored me. I've been working with Bobby Kennedy, and he's been very helpful on this. I have a good relationship with him. He's given us a lot of information, and we've looked at the communications. And in Anthony Fauci's communications, we now have evidence that he was telling people like Francis Collins, read this and destroy it. Well, you can't do that. The executive branch, when they communicate, they're required to keep their communications, and they're required to do it on government devices. So we have this evidence, and I've summarized it again in a criminal referral to Trump's attorney general, and I still haven't gotten action. But there's a couple reasons we should.
Don't hold your breath.
He shouldn't get away with lying. He shouldn't get away with destroying records. But two, we should check the pardon. Is an auto pen pardon valid? And is a pardon a retrospective pardon back 10 years that doesn't mention a crime? Can you give people a pardon for everything they did in a 10-year period? I can't imagine, and I think the court might narrow that. But it doesn't happen unless the Trump Justice Department will do something. And I've been sending them referrals, and I can't get them to do anything. I can't guarantee they'll win. They might lose, but they ought to go to court. Take it to court.
Yeah, well, the Trump so-called Justice Department is not going to prosecute the Epstein pedophiles. They're not going to do anything. And now that Pam Bondi is gone, this guy Todd Blanche is even worse. Much worse, as a matter of fact. Well, Gard Goldsmith, good to see you, Gard. Liberty Conspiracy said Trump again told people to watch Levin last night, and Levin talked nukes. How does Trump know what Levin will be discussing? Yeah. He is a state sponsor of terrorism himself, Mark Levin is. He's a mouthpiece for the Israeli government, as a matter of fact. Scroll that down, Travis. I can't see the rest of the comment there. Yeah. Levin is a state-coordinated media, right? One of the reasons I'm no longer at MRC TV as the new head of the organization is good pals with Levin. I didn't know you'd left, but good for you. Thank you for not towing that line. He said, I heard that Iran maintains power by occupying a large area of the Middle East, funding U.S. media shills, and he said spying, assassinating, pushing banker-backed colonialism, stealing nuclear. Oh, wait a minute. That's Israel, isn't it? Yeah, that's right. They're the ones who are occupying. They're the ones who are buying the media. They're the ones who are spying on everybody. It's absolutely amazing. It's all projection, isn't it? It's all projection. Well, yeah, keep going down here. We got Tornator. Thank you very much for the tip. He said Jason Burmis reported yesterday that the Bilderberg Group is going to be this weekend in D.C. This is the earliest I've heard of them having their meeting, so it's likely not a good sign. Maybe they decided that they have to move this up because all these billionaires just don't have the cash to fly on the planes when the jet fuel goes up so much. No, that's not it. Yeah, maybe they want to get this all, they want to have their meeting before we've got some kind of a world war lockdown that's going on. Yeah. DG8, thank you for the tip. He says, David Tyler Oliveira did a deep dig into the H-1B visa program in Frisco, Texas. In 10 years, it's gone from 2% to over 36%. He would make a great guest. This is what Ohio will look like if Vivek wins. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure that it absolutely will. Well, we're going to take a quick break, folks. We'll be right back.
free speech to free minds. It's the David Knight Show.
APS Radio delivers multiple channels of music right to your mobile device. Get the APS Radio app today and listen wherever you go.
Well, welcome back. We can always hope that people will wake up to Trump. Of course, people are waking up to the pharmaceutical stuff, as I reported. We've got the pharmaceutical companies, Pfizer and Moderna, are having difficulty getting people to line up as their lab rats for the latest mRNA injection, supposedly because of a new strain of COVID. Do we see anybody out there dying of COVID? No. And do we see people dying of the injections? Yes. See them all the time. As a matter of fact, I thought it was interesting. I mentioned this yesterday. Let me play it for you. It's Woody Harrelson, and he went on Saturday Night Live 3 years ago trying to wake people up. I think people are starting to get the message. And he had to do it on a live program because otherwise the media companies have all been bought by the pharma cartel, which is exactly what his joke was. And they would have taken off the joke about how they are bought and sold by the pharmaceutical companies. They would have censored that. So he did it on Saturday Night Live.
So the movie goes like this. The biggest drug cartels in the world get together and buy up all the media and all the politicians and force all the people in the world to stay locked in their homes. And people can only come out if they take the cartel's drugs and keep taking them over and over. I threw the script away. I mean, who is going to believe that crazy idea?
Yeah, I guess the MAGA people would believe it if it's done by Donald Trump. That's why he had to be put in there. They would have resisted it if it had been the other tribe. But they just reject anything that they know, any principles that they know, any self-respect, and follow along with Trump, and then blame it on the other side, right? That's what they wound up doing, projecting it on the other side. So now we are in a situation where Pfizer and BioNTech have abandoned their trial for an updated COVID-19 bioweapon after the big pharma giants were unable to attract enough U.S. trial participants. So again, this is, they were looking for about 25,000 to 30,000 people in the age group of 50 to 64. Moderna is reportedly facing similar requirement challenges testing its booster. This simply is not ending as a result of any safety or benefit risk concerns. On their part, at least, it's being ended by people who said, we're not going to play along with this game anymore. Even when patients are willing to participate in the COVID studies, more than 80% fail at pre-screening because they don't meet the health criteria, they said. Oh, so you mean after you injected so many people in this age group out of fear and out of coercion, you mean now we are a much less healthy society? How does that work out for public health, right? Yeah, pushing this vaccine on people. Cancer rates going up, blood clots going up, heart disease going up. Only about 18% of Americans received booster shots during the 2025-2026 season. And I guess that just shows that it's about 20% of the people you apparently can fool all the time. Not just some of the time, but all of the time. So in the wake of COVID, we are left with an undeniable crisis in health, said Dr. Scott Atlas. Remember when he was the great hope of people that he's going to get some sense into the Trump administration? The guy was nothing but a beard, folks. Just look in the mirror, Scott, if you want to know why we have an undeniable crisis in health. He said almost 2/3 of people now are rating the FDA and the CDC as only fair or poor. Do we have a choice in this multiple choice thing? Where does evil and corrupt come in? You know, it's, again, Vax Daddy was his mentor there. So he said, trust in our doctors and hospitals has dropped from 71% in 2019 to 40% in 2024. Vaccines have become a divisive issue in American politics. The U.S. faces a crisis of public trust. And that's what RFK Jr. says was his job. Trump gave him the job to restore the trust that Trump had destroyed. And he's not going to, however, restore the trust by stopping the poison. RFK Jr. is just standing by with that. He said, whether toward health agencies or pharmaceutical companies or vaccines themselves, public confidence is waning. Yeah, ours is not to reason why. Ours is but to inject and die, right? RFK Jr. said the industry and the government health service agencies that regulate them needed to reestablish public confidence in vaccine science. Well, why don't you explain the science to us, first of all, and why don't you explain your authority for even existing under the Constitution? This is, if you're not going to end the poisoning, don't expect people to trust the poisoners, but trust is the plan. Trust the plan. That's what they call the plan, trust. So it has been humiliating, said one person, to see how these people are stopping this and refusing to go along with it. So you've got, there's exactly why people are ending it.
You have been a big supporter of, whether or not this administration, but the work that had to be done there. We all know some people now that are in this government. There is a bit of a feeling like it's just same old, like no one, not even Donald Trump. It just seems we're watching Donald Trump bow down to Bayer Monsanto and is going to, put the Department.
Never saw that before, did we?
Liability protection, just like vaccines have. So great, let's just find ourselves in 20 years fighting these same battles over pesticides and herbicides that are poisoning us, and we can't sue and we can't do anything. What is happening to the free market? What is happening to conservative values?
There has been a strategic political decision that the Maha Coalition and the people that you represent are an inconsequential minority. They will not impact on the midterms. The midterms are a crisis, and the polling, internal polling in the White House, is that vaccine controversy is a losing issue at the midterm, and we just need to shut off all discussion. I mean, how can you have Bobby on Joe Rogan and the word vaccine never escapes his lips? That's a tell. Okay.
Yeah.
That's where
it's there to control people. I agree with them. Of course, they're looking at this like, who knew? Who knew this was a betrayal? Look, Children's Health Defense has held the line there as well. They've criticized RFK Jr. because he has done a 180, just as Trump has done a 180. I'm glad that people are finally seeing it. I certainly didn't support any of these people. They disgust me. This is, again, Pfizer is also losing a purported ally in the Trump administration, Attorney General Pam Bondi, who was trying to tank clinical trial whistleblower Brooke Jackson's False Claims Act lawsuit against Pfizer for allegedly using fraudulent data to obtain emergency use authorization for its Operation Warp Speed vaccines and related massive payouts from taxpayers. She wrote on Thursday on social media, she said, "You can't certify a lie." So what is an FDA authorization that is built on fraud? So if they give them, that's the fruit of the poisonous tree. The fruit of the poisonous tree is still poison. So if they give a fraudulent document, and that's what she was saying here as a whistleblower, they give a fraudulent document to the FDA, the CDC, or whatever, and they say, okay, rubber stamp it, it's approved. Well, now you should have that approval removed. And yet Pam Bondi was shutting that down. She didn't want that case heard. She has reopened the cases to put fluoride in the water, but she's not going to allow somebody who points out there was massive fraud from Pfizer on these COVID things in order to get their tens of billions of dollars from Trump. So scrutiny is coming from across the Atlantic as well, with a former Pfizer official telling a German pandemic inquiry that the vaccine maker cut corners on its COVID vaccine. No, really? Yeah, Helmut Sterz, Pfizer Europe's chief toxicologist until 2018, told the inquiry the carcinogenic risk from mRNA shots was, quote, not investigated due to time constraints. Yeah, we got to do this at warp speed. We don't have time for tests, right? Yeah. I did this so fast, said Trump. Nobody could believe how fast I did it. Yeah, because you skipped all the testing. And the standards were lagging for its study on reproduction, fertility, pregnancy, and on newborn development. Yeah, how is that pro-life? No, that's just Nazi science when you push it on pregnant women. And of course, that's exactly what Bibi did in Israel. Bibi Netanyahu said, you haven't done your test, that's fine. Use my people as your test subjects. Yeah, go ahead. He throws them under the bus. Though he wasn't involved in the COVID vaccine development, Stertz said that he based his conclusions on his review of Pfizer's licensed vaccine, Comirnaty, and public evidence and research papers. A devout minority of Americans continue to take COVID vaccines. Again, a literal dying cult of safety and big government and trust of Trump. Vaccination intent is decidedly against the inoculation this season. A plurality of adults, 48%, saying that they probably or definitely will not get one. 60% of kids saying the same thing. Years before he took over the FDA, as editor-in-chief of MedPage, McCary questioned the CDC's claim that COVID had killed healthy young children, saying he had never seen any such data. Yeah, there is no data that says that. Instead, it's the vaccine that killed healthy young children. So then the question is, as head of the FDA, why has he not banned it, right? This is what is so frustrating with all this stuff. These people who come in, these grifters, these liars who tell you that they're for this when they're actually not for that. And that's what we see in spades with everybody in the Trump administration. Now, I'm the peace president. No, you're the military-industrial war complex president. So essentially, the market itself is taking the COVID shots off of the market. Well, it's not the market, it's the people. And same people, really, who nullified what Trump and Biden were doing with the lockdown, the mask, and all the rest of this stuff. Unfortunately, we didn't have any Nuremberg trials. Nobody had any charges brought against them, even when they have been referred over and over again by senators, by the public. Something needs to be done. These guys are lying. They just get away with this crime. And so the best that anybody can do is just refuse to comply with any of this stuff.
Just letting you know, the U.S. has launched strikes on Karg Island, so.
Great. Yeah, suicide mission there. Trump doesn't care how many people he kills, folks. This is an SOB that killed babies with his toxic bioweapon. He certainly doesn't care about people who signed up to fight wars for him. He has absolutely no regard for human life. What a piece of filth he is. Not everyone was convinced the vaccine makers are being genuine. I would not be surprised if this was a ruse to force the FDA to rescind its rule requiring trials for new boosters, said one critic. So again, that's Josh Gutskow, I think is how you pronounce his name. He co-wrote a study with the FDA and the CDC advisors on pregnancy losses after mRNA vaccinations. So they know that they're killing babies, they're aborting babies with this and harming the babies, and yet they still go. And this guy has become, he realizes how evil these people are. So his cynical position is, well, maybe they really can get the people. Maybe they're just claiming that they're stopping this, first of all, because nobody wants their product. So why go through all the tests and the trial? You can just say, well, we can't find enough healthy people, or people are reluctant to do this. He said, maybe this is a ruse to get the FDA to relax all the testing of vaccines. I think that's a very likely outcome, quite frankly. He noted that Prasad was scheduled to leave the agency at month's end following a year of repeated takedown attempts by the media, including Wall Street Journal and Laura Loomer. The person who has no fear of injections or microplastics or silicon or whatever all over her face.
Laura Loomer's moved on to macroplastics.
Yeah, this is amazing. Laura Loomer is out there trying to take down people who want to have restrictions on the vaccines. That's where this has all gone. What a surprise. His predecessor, Peter Marks, agreed not to reject a vaccine for kids under 5 solely because it was less than 50% effective. In 2022, Peter Marks' hasty exit prompted severe single-day plunges for gene therapy and mRNA vaccine makers a year ago. Because this is about the money, right? Just like for Susie Wiles, it's about the popularity polls. For these guys, it's about the money. Teens, meanwhile, are 5 times more likely to develop heart conditions after the mRNA Trump GCI bioweapons. What a surprise. And again, the non-vaxxed don't have this issue at all. Teenagers are up to 5 times more likely to develop myocarditis and pericarditis, 10 times more likely to experience an anaphylactic reaction. And again, Children's Health Defense and Dr. Brian Hooker, they noticed early on that, I remember this was in the fall of 2020, they said, we see that you're going to use PEG to encapsulate this stuff in your injection. You're going to be injecting polyethylene glycol into people. You know, this vaccine, these components are pegylated, and you're going to inject that in people. You're going to have a lot of people have anaphylactic shock. And so they sent that to the FDA, and the FDA's response was, well, we don't care. Tell Pfizer about it. Of course, Pfizer doesn't care. There's no oversight at all. I talked about that over and over again. I said, that event right there tells you all you need to know about this this ridiculous situation we have with the FDA. So he said 10 times more likely to experience an anaphylactic reaction. They knew that. They warned it. The FDA didn't care. A 37-fold higher rate of myocarditis and pericarditis among 12 to 15-year-olds who received a 2-dose series. So the risk goes up significantly if you have 2 doses. We also knew that back in 2020 as well. So Dr. Clayton Baker, an internal medicine physician, said the study, quote, provides further confirmation that the second dose increases the toxicity of the product dramatically. It also confirms that the mRNA shots cause myocarditis in adolescents. Tell that to the father of the vaccine who doesn't care. Now the father of global economic depression and World War III to follow. Yeah, he will destroy anybody for his own advantage, as he's doing right now. He's probably going to wind up getting a lot of American troops killed in Karg Island, but whether or not they get killed, there's going to be a lot of Iranians that are killed. And for what? For his ego politics. That's really what we're looking at here. So Steve Kirsch said, well, they didn't put any of this stuff that I just read you in the abstract. And he goes, this was deliberate, a deliberate cover-up. So these guys do the research, and they've got a choice. They can either lie about it, or they can bury it and not put it in the abstract. He said researchers avoided even mentioning myocarditis in the abstract. Aside from a vague phrase like, quote, increased IRRs, that is the incidence rate ratios, observed following second dose vaccination, he said that can mean anything from a swollen lymph node to mild fever. They don't want to use the word myocarditis. Baker said the researchers appear to have done this despite clear evidence of a link between mRNA, vaccination, myocarditis, and other conditions. The evidence is indisputable. The mRNA shots caused myocarditis in adolescents. They know the vast majority of readers, however, never look past the first page. They read the abstract summary. And you don't put it in the abstract summary, even though it is the thing that sticks out like a sore thumb in your data. You're doing it to conceal that. Instead of calling the adverse events a warning that demands broader sampling, they call them, quote, insignificant due to rarity. Yeah, we hear that all the time. It's rare, you know. Heard that about the Cipro fluoride-based antibiotic. It's not rare. It has happened to hundreds of thousands of people. It is not acceptable, but it is to the people who are doing this simply because they want profits. And again, Catherine Austin Fitts points out, when you look at the FDA, you know, it's not just about okaying harmful bioweapon poisons. The FDA also has another role, and that is to keep us from healthy food.
There's a meme going around the social media that says it perfectly. It says we've raided more raw milk farms than Epstein clients. Okay.
Yeah.
And that says it all. So, there's no healthier food for you than raw milk. Unbelievable. And yet they're trying to shut down your healthy food, but the Epstein clients are free to rock and roll.
Mm-hmm.
We do have a few comments here. We've got Audi MRR, and of course that's Audi Modern Retro Radio, and you can find his podcast, Everything is a Lie, Damn It, on Rumble. Go check it out. He says RFK Jr. didn't do a 180. He was establishing fraudulent trust only to betray the ones who trusted him. This is their MO for everything.
That's right. Yeah, you look at him and again, when you look at what he said about climate, when he was on, that was his main thing. I never had any use for what he had to say after he was saying, well, we need to execute people and put them in jail if they want to if they're going to destroy the environment. And he said, we're never going to have snow again in the Northeast and all the rest of this crazy stuff. And he wanted to put the Koch brothers in jail or kill them. And I was going to ask him about that when he was running for president, and he backed out of the interview at the last minute. I've had two people back out of interviews at the last minute. RFK Jr. and that guy, Andrew Yang, I think it was.
Yeah, Yang.
Yeah, Yang.
Yang Gang.
He was the one who was pushing universal basic income. He was the first candidate that Elon Musk got behind, gave him $1 million and that type of thing.
Also, beloved of Nick Fuentes at one point. Fun fact.
Oh, was he? Yeah. Well,
possibly only ironically, but who can say?
Yeah, Fuentes is a piece of work himself, but I never tried to interview Nick Fuentes, so that's...
They wanted you to have him on, and then he bailed at the last minute or something.
Yeah, well, I guess there we go. So there's a third one.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk
to be
this
fair,
guy.
He bails on a lot of things. He was probably just tired and overslept, because that's a running issue with him. He can't be bothered to get out of bed to do a show. Angry Tiger's Den. Good to see you, Angry Tiger. Hope you're doing well. And you can check out his program as well on Rumble. Just look up Angry Tiger's Den. He says, Trump just said a little while ago he will annihilate the whole civilization of Iran.
He needs to be taken out of office, and he needs to be put in irons, folks. This is just unbelievable. I have become a destroyer of worlds, right? Again, when he said, praise God, I said to the family, I said, so what God is that? Is that the Hindu god of destruction, Shiva? Is that really what he's after? It certainly isn't the Lord Jesus Christ. That's not who he's following. Well, we're going to take a quick break, folks.
But before we do that, I want to remind you all that we are a listener-supported program. We cannot thank you all enough for the support you do give us.
Yes.
And if you would like to support the show, a good way to do that is liking and subscribing, sharing the broadcast. Or if you'd like to more directly contribute, you can go to davidknight.news and see all the ways you can do that there. So thank you all very, very much.
Well, we're going to take a quick break. And as Trump is escalating the war, again, it's all ego politics. It's egonomics and ego politics, and he's not going to back down. He's going to show everybody what a tough guy he is by sitting at his desk and ordering people to kill and die for him. I'm disgusted beyond belief with this stuff. But we're going to talk about the economic side when we come back. We're going to talk about making depression great again, because that's what he's doing.
You're listening to The David Knight Show.
Elvis.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles.
And the sweet sounds of Motown. Find them on the Oldies channel at apsradio.com.
Well, again, true to form, as Trump is, hey, we're going to have negotiations. So last summer, he launches a sneak attack. Same thing again in February. He says, well, you got till 8 p.m. on Tuesday, but then he goes ahead and launches this. I don't know what time zone that was. Maybe that was the time. Maybe it was 8 p.m. there. I don't know. But he launches the Karg Island attack. And I have watched Colonel McGregor as well as Scott Ritter, and they're not the only ones. I've watched several different people talk about the difficulties ahead in terms of invading Karg Island. But here's the economic reality of whatever happens to the soldiers and Marines who have to do this. Whatever happens to them, the reality is that this kind of attack on Iran's infrastructure is exactly what they promised to retaliate against. And so this is going to be much worse than the OPEC embargo because they're destroying facilities to produce the oil and extract the oil and refine the oil. Saudi Arabia is now charging record premium for its oil. Their oil exports have dropped 50%. And they're not able to ship anything through the Strait of Hormuz. What they're doing is they're sending it down a pipeline and taking it out in the Red Sea at the port of Yanbu. They're handling more shipments than ever before, but that is right around the area where the Houthis could cut that off. So they could cut off traffic going into the, coming from that port that typically goes up the Red Sea to the Suez Canal. That could be cut off as well. So again, Trump doesn't know or care about any of this stuff, just like he didn't care what was happening when he locked everything down in 2020. Well, Saudi Arabia is only able to export about 50% of its normal volumes in March. The loss to global oil supplies caused by this Middle East conflict. That really kind of bothers me when we see that kind of stuff. It's kind of like, well, COVID did this and COVID did that, and the Middle East conflict did that. No, it was Trump. Trump did it, not COVID. Trump did this, not a Middle East conflict. This is Donald Trump, who has caused a global energy crisis and is leading us into a Great Depression. Pre-war prices may never return, despite Trump's contrary claims, says one economist. Didn't I say this from the very beginning? I said, if you go back and look at what happened with the 1973 OPEC oil embargo, much smaller and narrower target than this. This is cutting off 20% of the world supply. What that OPEC oil embargo did was to cut off 15% of the U.S. oil supply. And look at the unrest that it caused. You had, within a few years, you'd had a quadrupling of oil prices, and it never came back. That's the reality of what's happening with this. This is going to be worse than the OPEC oil embargo because this is going after production. The Arabs didn't blow up their oil facilities or their ports back in 1973. They just stopped shipping it to the United States. Now this is going to be much worse. I don't think we're going to go back to pre-war prices for the foreseeable future, said Mark Zandi, chief economist at Moody's Analytics. Again, it's going to take a long time to get the supply chain going, but then you've got to have a supply that you can chain to people. The national average price for a gallon of gas recently eclipsed $4. It is forecast to reach a high of $6 this summer, thanks to Trump. As a matter of fact, I saw one of the stickers. I forget who had it. It might have been Eric Peters had a sticker. And instead of the one with Biden pointing to the price and saying, I did that because he started his sanctions because of Russia. And I did one where I had Donald Trump not pointing at the price, but shooting the viewer a bird. And he says, I did that, defiantly. Well, now there's another one. And it says, we did that. And it's got Epstein, Trump, and Netanyahu. We did that. The three of them, three stooges. So it's forecast to reach as high as $6 this summer, a nationwide average. And of course, it's gone over $8 in California already. So this is on top of Trump's tariff policies, which were already increasing the price of a lot of things and breaking the supply chain. Trump has said that gas prices will come tumbling down as soon as the U.S. pulls out of Iran again. Is he that stupid, or is he just knowingly lying to you? The analyst said there's no way that's going to happen. He rejected that out of hand. He said the die is being cast for the rest of the year for what's going to happen in the markets, said the CEO of Dow. And he said it's like the unwind that we saw in the supply chains during COVID. You know, the last time Trump was president, what did he do? You could be in the 250 to 275 day range. This is not going to be an instantaneous rewind. No, it'll be much worse. During the OPEC oil embargo, during the COVID stuff, these were political decisions to shut stuff down. They didn't go in and blow up production. David Stockman, who was the director of OMB for Ronald Reagan and was pushing really hard against deficit spending, David Stockman warns this is not your grandfather's stagflation. He said it was pretty obvious even before February 28th that the U.S. economy was grinding to a halt, even as inflation was already working up a head of steam. Then came war. Yeah, that's the actual war after Trump's trade war. We're going to get a globe-shaking economic conflagration erupting from the void that was the Persian Gulf commodity fountain. He said between 20 and 50% of all the basic commodities that drive global GDP, including not just crude oil and LPGs and LNGs, but also ammonia, urea, sulfur, helium, and sundry more. All these basic commodities, you know, they're talking about plastic shortages and everything. Everything is going to be a shortage. And I just hope everybody remembers, because I'm going to keep reminding people, it's all due to Trump's actions. This ballooning dislocation of daily global commodity flows will have a double whammy effect. It'll both cause production and output to fall immediately in response to soaring input cost or limited availability, even as it encourages central banks to help by printing money. And that will massively drive inflation. So it's not going to just be, you know, supply side inflation. It's going to be money supply inflation, which is the key thing. This all adds up to a bout of classic stagflation, but it's not going to be merely the mildly painful type that unfolded during the 1970s. Despite a 120% rise in the price level during that decade, it wasn't a total wipeout when measured from the vantage point of real median family income. As it happened, the 1970s stagflation, says David Stockman, came on the heels of what had been an actual golden age by the standards of history between 1954 and 1969. During that period of time in America, real median family incomes rose from $39,700 to $66,870. That's a big increase, a robust 3.5% per year. Then Main Street prosperity slowed sharply during the inflation of the 1970s. Between 1969 and 1980, real median family incomes grew by not very impressive 0.6% per annum. So, you know, from 1954 to 1969, basically when I was growing up, the economy is growing an average of 3.5% a year. Then it slowed, and the catalyst was what the Federal Reserve was doing, but also the OPEC oil embargo. Then it slowed from 3.5% a year to 0.6% a year growth. The stagnant part of the stagflation. The U.S. economy of the 1970s, however, was able to cope with the pressures of high inflation, oil, and other commodity shocks, and the stop-and-go disruptions of the Federal Reserve that had been newly released from the disciplinary effects of the Bretton Woods gold standard. So again, you know, they're on the gold standard. We had a period of prosperity. Then they get off the gold standard with the, you know, ending Bretton Woods and creating the petrodollar. Now they have no constraints on what they do. And what does that do to the prosperity of the nation? You know, it gives the government a free hand to do whatever they wish, and it throttles our prosperity. So he said total public and private debt by 1970 stood at $1.5 trillion, about 147% of GDP. The long-time national, which is around the long-time national leverage ratio through historic times of thick and thin, going all the way back to 1870. Even after large government deficits of the 1970s and a surge of inflation-driven private borrowing during the decade, total U.S. debt stood at $4.6 trillion by 1980, and that was just 162% of GDP. This decade of stagflation was battered by unprecedented peacetime inflation, but it was not yet smothered by crushing debt. The soaring national leverage ratio did not really leap skyward until after the mid-1980s, when Alan Greenspan took the helm at the Fed and launched the U.S. and the world into a 4-decade spree of money printing and what it amounted to Keynesian central banking, which has always been one of the interesting things to me, how Alan Greenspan, who was, by all accounts, he was absolutely a part of the Ayn Rand inner circle, right? You would expect that he's, I never looked it up to know, but I think he was, when he was hanging out with Ayn Rand and the libertarians, I think he was pushing Austrian economics. Then he becomes head of the Federal Reserve. Everybody had great expectations. Oh, great, we got a libertarian, Austrian, that's going to bring some sanity to this stuff. Instead, he embraces Keynesianism. And again, total public and private debt is in a wholly different zip code today. Instead of 167%, which was the high back then, it is now 343% of national income, of GDP. The U.S. economy will be carrying 2 turns of extra debt relative to income than was the case in 1970. And we're accumulating it now at $3 trillion per year of more interest and expense, therefore less cash flow available for investment and discretionary spending. And this is one of the reasons why Trump was so adamant about trying to get interest rates down. He wanted to get the interest rates down to take down the interest on the debt, the accumulated debt, which he has done probably more than any other president. He's more responsible for adding to it. He put us on a completely different slope of indebtedness. You can see it when you look at how the debt was climbing over the years, and he becomes president. It's going along like this, and then all of a sudden it goes up. Biden kept exactly the same increase ratio, and he's not going to do anything to stop the spending. He just wanted to try to get the interest rate down. But now he's kind of just, he doesn't care about any of that stuff. Now he's got to fight wars for Israel. That's the issue. The empirical results tell you that the Keynesian money printers and statists who said that there was no sweat about this were absolutely wrong. He said, in the case of the industrial core of the U.S. economy, the growth rate has not just slowed, it has actually come to a screeching halt. Between 1954 and 69, the industrial production index rose by about 4.5% a year. During the years since the debt-fueled financial crisis of 2008, however, there has been no growth at all in the industrial sector of the U.S. economy. Now, Trump sees this, and Peter Navarro, who's dumber than a stack of bricks, as Elon Musk said, and their response is, well, it's because we got all the manufacturing has gone to China, so let's set up tariffs. And all that is doing is making everything worse. The real issue is the government debt. The real issue is the government spending. The real issue is not the trade deficit. The real issue is the budget deficit. He couldn't be more wrong about everything. Anyway, why do we get so much debt and so little real growth after the Fed went full-on Keynesian under Greenspan and his heirs and his assigns? He says, after the February 28th and Trump initiation of war in the Persian Gulf that can't be won, and which will send the global economy into a tailspin like nothing seen since the mid-1970s, we are truly off to the stagflationary races, I should say. And again, Gerald Cinti has been saying for the longest time that all of the quantitative easing and everything that was happening through the Obama administration, the Trump administration, the Biden administration, he said all these chickens are going to come home to roost, and it's not going to be stagflation, it's going to be dragflation. It's not just going to be zero growth, it's going to be negative growth. Energy and fuel costs have already soared. Most importantly, the workhorse hydrocarbon of the U.S. economy, diesel fuel, used by the nation's massive fleet of trucks, rail, and farm tractors, is already above the 2022 level and still climbing. Of course, no one took into account that the natural gas processing plants of Qatar were fastened at the hip to the semiconductor plants in South Korea and Taiwan, and from there to the entire manufacturing sector of the world, all through helium gas These soaring commodity prices are going to push the inflation indices higher, even as industrial output contracts owing to rising costs and limited availability. The inflation genie is now out of the bottle, but the Fed cannot really slam on the brakes like Paul Volcker did, because the U.S. economy is staggering under $60 trillion of incremental debt. So as we said, this is not your grandfather's stagflation, not by a long shot. Jamie Dimon, I prefer that pronunciation of his name, at J.P. Morgan, warns that rising oil prices could trigger a recession and a bear market in 2026. And then you've got the Democrats, says NBC News, have discovered a hot new idea: tax cuts. Well, great, tax cuts, and yet understand that they're not going to cut spending on anything, which means that when they do the tax cuts without cutting spending, and you know that absolutely Democrats are not going to do that, just like Trump wouldn't do it, because Trump is a Democrat himself. He's a New York City Democrat. When they do that, it's going to explode the deficit even more. And we are in a situation where these guys don't really have any tricks up their sleeve left. This is very much like, the best thing that Gerald Ford could do was to print buttons that said, "Win, whip inflation now." Well, exactly what am I supposed to do to whip inflation when you are printing dollars? And we got these other things that happen. It's like, I can't stop you from printing, can I? How do we do that? I don't know how I was supposed to win back then. And then we look at what is happening with electricity prices, and that is going to be the other shoe to drop. We're going to have massive issues with that, and already you got people feeling the pinch from Trump's favorite thing, artificial intelligence. Why does he like that? Because that gives him the opportunity of surveillance and control, and he is clearing the decks for AI. Don't have any regulation of AI. Well, we'll wait and see. Already, the cost of electricity is figuring in big time in a lot of different elections. We're nearly out of time, so we're not going to take a break. I'm going to jump to the next thing here. Let's see. We've got, let's talk about Trump's police state here, and whether or not he's winning this war. One of the interesting outcomes already for this is that he's given Tehran a massive toll booth there at the Strait of Hormuz. They've announced that they're going to divide countries into 3 different categories to see who gets to pass through. Recently, French, Japanese, and Oman-linked ships were allowed to cross through, but they're going to have 3 different categories. They're going to rate the countries that these tankers are flagged in. They're going to rate them as either hostile, neutral, or friendly. Now, if you're hostile, you're not going to go through at all. If you are neutral, they're going to charge some really high fees, and they're going to make a lot of money out of that. The friendly states will be able to just pass through without a charge at all. So in response to that, Brent futures and WTI futures, West Texas Intermediate crude, both closed Friday in triple-digit territory. People are alarmed not just about crude oil and LNG shortages, but also about petrochemical supply disruptions. Again, the helium stuff, plastics that are inbound that could affect plastic production, the core material that is the bedrock for modern economy. Yeah, go back to The Graduate, right? Ben, I got one word for you: plastic. I got one word for Trump: plastic. And I don't mean the Mar-a-Lago faces that are there. I mean the real stuff here. Meanwhile, as Trump is getting what he wants with the police state, Palantir, which was incubated by the CIA, as I've pointed out many times, this is actually from Technocracy News. It was In-Q-Tel, and they created Palantir, and their venture capital firm that was openly done by the CIA. They didn't even try to hide it. And if you go back and look, in addition to In-Q-Tel, go back and look at the people who sit on the boards of these venture capital companies that were funding the likes of Google and Facebook and Palantir and all these things. And they're just filled with people who are from the intelligence community. Again, they're making money for themselves, while they are picking the players who are going to compete against themselves and make, may the best man win. But you don't get to even compete in the game unless you're going to be somebody that's going to do business with the CIA and the people who are there. And this has long been baked in. When you look at geospatial intelligence, they had AI before there was artificial intelligence. They had what they called anticipatory intelligence. We can predict what you're going to do by watching and surveilling you, looking at your movements, looking at who you interact with. We can predict your behavior, and we can determine that you are friend or foe to the administration, right? I saw this picture, and it was actually kind of funny. South African politician who was running for mayor, and this is in one of the most prosperous cities of South Africa, Johannesburg. And yet they had this massive pothole that they wouldn't fix. The road collapsed. They had a broken pipe filled up and a trench. And the person who's running for mayor, to illustrate the fact that this is totally neglected, put on a snorkel and went snorkeling in the pothole. It was so large. I thought, this is the apt metaphor for the Trump regime, isn't it? We got Donald Trump snorkeling and doing backstrokes as he's destroying not just Iran's infrastructure, but the infrastructure and the economy of the world. Thank you for joining us.
And quickly before we go, I want to make sure we thank Audi MRR. Thank you so much. That's very generous.
You. Wow.
And he says, thanks for promoting my podcast. Everything is a lie, damn it. And thank you for your daily analysis with integrity and good intentions. Audi.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that. Yes. Thank you all for joining us. And tomorrow we're going to have a couple of interviews that we have recorded. I just talked to Eric Peters last night. And so we're going to have that Eric Peters interview, and we've got another interview we're doing this afternoon. And we're doing that because when it came time for our anniversary celebration back on St. Patrick's Day, we were snowed in. And so I wanted to take care of that. So I found a concert that we're going to go to, and it's going to be, won't be able to do the show and go to that concert tonight. So it's our 54th anniversary that we're celebrating. So told Eric I appreciate the anniversary gift for coming on and recording an interview with us. So that's what we're going to have tomorrow. So we won't be talking about whatever is happening at Carg Island tomorrow, but we will be talking about it in general because we recorded this interview last night. So thank you for joining us today, and we will see you live again on Thursday. And we'll have Gerald Slinty who's going to be joining us on Friday. He has moved to every other Wednesday now, but he's going to be joining us on Friday, and I'm sure he'll have a lot to say about what is going on with the war on the economy and the war crimes that Donald Trump is doing. Thank you. Have a good day. The Common Man. They created Common Core to dumb down our children. They created Common Pass to track and control us. Their Commons Project to make sure the commoners own nothing. And the communist future. They see the common man as simple, unsophisticated, ordinary. But each of us has worth and dignity created in the image of God. That is what we have in common. That is what they want to take away. Their most powerful weapons are isolation, deception, intimidation. They desire to know everything about us while they hide everything from us. It's time to turn that around and expose what they want to hide. Please share the information and links you'll find at thedavidknightshow.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. If you can't support us financially, please keep us in your prayers. thedavidknightshow.com.